All right, let's take a look at Multi-Man's Rock of the Marne from the Standard Combat series. It's one of those ones they had on sale a while back, and I picked up a copy of it. That, along with the 11th Panzer battles along the Cheer. I guess this is the quick pace series of their games. I know they were operational, tactical, grand tactical. But, you know, my first go around with it, so far I like it. Good looking map, good looking counters. Not too few counters, not too many. Great rule booklet. You know, I think it's 8 pages, and those 8, maybe 6 of them are rules. And then you've got the playbook that goes with it. That's maybe the same thing, 6, 7, 8 pages of specific rules for the game, and there's a bunch of games in the series ranging from all over the place. So, but this is my first one with it. This is the second battle of the Marne, or what they call it, the Champagne Aisne or something campaign or whatever. Getting close to the end of the war. This is in July of I believe 1918. Let's see. Let's take a look. I'm using my new stabilizer here, so you have to give me time to get used to it. All right, let's see. Let's scroll down here. All right, so there's the turn record track, and it's 15 game turns. Yeah, so it's July of 1918. Starts on looks like the 15th to the 14th. Now, the Germans started an offensive, and this was kind of let's get the Allies to commit troops from the Flanders area, because the Germans' intention was to get the Allies to draw troops over here, and then they were going to start their real offensive over in Flanders. However, Pétain, I think, gets credit for this, Marshal Pétain, but it's Foch that sets up the unique deployment here, where he has his troops, for the most part, vacate the frontline trenches and deploy, and the main troops would be deployed farther back. So when the Germans opened their artillery barrage, they weren't hitting much. And the fact that the French knew precisely when this German attack, what it was going to be and when it was going to come, they opened up their own artillery barrage on the starting positions of the Germans, the Axis, Central Powers, whatever, 45 minutes before they were going to start their bombardment. All right, so anyhow, the Germans kicked off, and much like the real thing, they attacked east and west of Reims. All right, there's Reims, whatever you want to call it. And they attacked east and west of that, and their intention was to take Reims, and then, of course, drive deep into this. I think, was it Ludendorff? I believe he was thinking that this was going to set up the final campaign, and this would win the war. Not this battle, but, using this battle before they went to Flanders, or before they started the campaign or the attack at Flanders. All right, so this game has shock troopers, and it has machine gun units, they're good exploitation units. The machine gun units, see if we can find one right here. Here's a machine gun unit right here. The machine gun units get a defensive shift. The shock troops, these other ones here in yellow, for the Germans, their exploitation. And you can break down infantry divisions, and you got to make sure when you break them down that, say you break that 446 down, the numbers on the shock troops, they have a front and a back side, can't be more than the attack and the defensive value, which that 4-4 is the attack and defense value. The French also have them. They have breakdown units. You can see right there, there's a flip side of one of the infantry breakdown units. But those ones in yellow, and they have one armor unit they can use, the Germans do. It's right there. But those shock troopers, like I said, they can do exploits. So you get movement, which any of these exploitation type units, they can actually move and overrun during the movement phase. Then you have combat, so they can also do combat in that phase. And then you have the exploitation phase, where those special units can move to their full a complement of movement points again and overrun again. So in reality, they can attack 3 times if they're used properly. All right, so then you got headquarters units. You've got, here is an Army headquarters unit right there, that 10-1-2. They can apply, there's a yellow box next to them there, and that is an attack shift. Now they can do trace supply, which supply is pretty easy in this game. It doesn't matter how many hexes it is. I think the only caveat is these temporary bridges, these shock bridges or assault bridges, the Germans have like 3 or 4 of them they can use. Only one headquarters unit can have a supply path traced across it. But the hard-coded bridges, the ones that are there, it doesn't matter how many. So the Army units can apply attack shifts to combat, which that's a column shift too. And believe me, that's major, all right? And then these units here, he is a depleted side of an Army of Corps headquarters. He can apply trace supply and attack supply to a unit. Plus, he has shifts too. So he can do all 3: trace supply, attack supply, and combat shifts. The attack supply units have to be within the range of one of these headquarters units on its replenish side in order to attack. And then you have some units that are called promised assignment or promised assigned or something like that. Let me find one here. That's it. So that green unit right there, he can only draw his supply, his attack supply from his assigned headquarters, which is over here. And that headquarters has a range of 6. It's in hexes, not in movement points. So supply is pretty easy. I haven't had anybody yet. I think I had a couple of French guys and an American guy that got surrounded because zone of control does affect supply tracing. All right, so anyhow, the Germans, for 7 turns, I wanted to play through until the first turn, I guess you call it the morning, before noon turn of July 18th, which is when in real life, the Allied offensive got started in this area. So the Germans had 7 turns, 3.5 days of attacking, and it's actually turned out pretty much similar to, my fight here. It's similar to what it was back in 1918. The Germans have pushed this bulge across the Marne River, and they've actually come down here and taken some of these victory points. And amazingly enough, the Allies they scattered, they've gotten cut off, and they've bent back. They didn't do as well. Well, they held on to their trench lines initially over here, but then it just became overwhelming and they backed off. So they started to fall back. But like I say, the July 18th is getting ready to start, and these guys will probably start to get all these reinforcements, and they will start their offensive. The Germans they've taken quite a few losses, but they've also issued out a lot of damage to the Allies. I mean, you see these piles over. Now, you get replacements points each turn. It's like 1 or 2. The Germans usually get 2, or the Axis. So they have minimal stuff in there. Now, for each replacement point, you can only bring in 1 step. So if you get 2 replacement points in, you can't bring in 1 2-step unit. It has to be two 1-step units. And your priority goes to the dead pile. Now, the mobile units, which the French don't have any on board yet, but they will be getting these eventually, the exploitation type units. They don't go to the dead pile, they go right back in so they can be freely used again by another unit. And you have air. And you got air units right there that can do combat air patrol, interception, bombardment, ground support, bridge bombardment, or ground support. The Germans have shock bridges or assault bridges. And then the only other informational counters you have are supply markers, which I've only had to use like 2. All right, so your game procedure here is when the turn starts, you do a replacement, you do a replenishment. Your replenishment is rolling to get your aircraft out of that flown air box and into the ready box so they can be used again. Your headquarters units, like this one here, he's depleted. You will be rolling to get him replenished so he can be at full use again. You bring your replacements and your reinforcements come in. Your replacements come in, if they're from the dead pile, you put them under a headquarters unit, especially if you pull one in that is a PA unit, one of these promise units, you put him in under his headquarters. If a headquarters gets destroyed, because they can take a step loss, they're not completely eliminated, which you usually put them on the game turn track 2 turns later and you bring them back in. Okay. There's your combat charts. Nothing too, oh, wrong way. Nothing too extreme. You got a combat table, you got an interception table, you got your terrain effects and shifts chart, and you got your bridge bombing. That's it. That's all your charts. So that's nothing to, it took me about 2 turns to grasp the system, and the only thing that I was having a problem remembering was to replenish the aircraft. The headquarters was easy enough. Now that's another thing too about the headquarters. If you get this game, it took me about 4 turns to develop a system for this. A headquarters can only apply his attack or combat shifts to 1 combat per turn. The problem is they don't deplete until the end of the combat phase. So you got to leave them on their side. Well, that's kind of hard. I was having a hard time trying to remember, did I use them for a combat shift? So what I started doing was when they used their combat, I just turned the counter sideways 90 degrees. And then at the end of the turn, then I would flip them over. That way I knew I'd use them. All right, so just to keep you up to date here, the Allies are fixing to get a storm full of reinforcements over here, and they're going to start their offensive. And I think they start getting reinforcements all along this line. And I believe by the end of July, they had pushed the Germans back well past Soissons. I think they held on to Soissons for a little while, but then they pushed them even farther off the map by the time middle of August was here. So, all right, but we're going to grind out the rest of these turns here and keep you updated on this. Your dice rolls are 2 6-sided for all the charts and everything. Simple game system. I know I've heard some out there that they don't like it, and others I haven't yet seen somebody that really loves it. But I'm gonna tell you I do, because if you want something that plays pretty fast and has small rule set that's pretty clean, and you can, after a turn or 2 of playing it, you can just blow right through this with great gaming, results, in my opinion. So I'm enjoying it, and like I said, I've got one other one. I'm already looking at the rest of them in the list to see how I can get my hands on them. All right, so thanks for watching. Hey, if you enjoyed this stuff, give me a like there. If you want to keep up to date, hit subscribe and smack that bell to be notified when I do new playthroughs, and we'll get back to you.